Welcome to The Conspiracy. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into a phrase that has echoed across headlines, social media, and yes, even dinner tables. The Great Reset. What is it? Is it a well-intentioned roadmap for global recovery or something far more clandestine? You've provided us with a stack of fascinating sources, everything from official World Economic Forum documents and academic analyses to articles dissecting the intricate web of theories that have sprung up around it. Our mission today is to cut through the noise, unpack these wildly different perspectives, and understand how this concept became one of the most talked about phenomena of our time. So what does this all mean for you and the world around us?
Let's unpack this. So let's get right to the origin story. The term the Great Reset really burst into the public consciousness in June 2020.
Right.
That's when the World Economic Forum, or WEEF, officially launched its Great Reset initiative. It wasn't just a catchy title. It was framed as a comprehensive economic recovery plan, a direct response to the massive disruption from the COVID-19 pandemic.
Their stated goal, to build back better from the global crisis, with a sharp focus on sustainable development. They even rolled out a video featuring the then Prince of Wales, Charles, to kick it off.
And what's truly intriguing about the WEF's vision is that it pushes beyond simple economic recovery. It's more fundamental. A cornerstone idea is stakeholder capitalism, a concept championed by former Bank of England Governor Mark Carney.
Okay.
He argued that in a post-COVID world, companies would be judged not just by profits, but by what they did during the war, meaning how they treated their employees, their suppliers, and, their customers.
Right, that whole stakeholder group.
Exactly. The aim, as he put it, is to bridge the gulf between what markets value and what people value, emphasizing better risk management, stronger social safety nets, and listening closely to scientific experts, especially on global challenges like climate change.
That concept of bridging values makes a lot of sense, especially when you consider the dizzying pace of technological change. Because another core component of the WEF's vision, heavily influenced by its founder, Klaus Schwab, is something they called the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
Right, 4IR.
Yeah. This isn't just about automation. It's presented as a profound shift blurring the lines between physical, digital, and biological spheres.
Which sounds pretty sci-fi.
It does. Think about it. A fusion of technologies like artificial intelligence, robotics, the Internet of Things, autonomous vehicles, 3D printing, even biotechnology. Imagine smart cities that adapt instantly to human needs or personalized medicine tailored by AI directly interacting with our biology. It's a vision of a truly interconnected, tech-driven future.
And this wasn't just DBF talking amongst themselves, right?
Not at all.
The idea quickly gained serious traction and prominent endorsements from global leaders. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, for example, spoke at the UN General Assembly, calling the pandemic an opportunity for a reset, to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges.
I remember that speech.
And John Kerry also revealed that President Biden was apparently quite devoted to this movement, this way of thinking. These public endorsements naturally became lightning rods, fueling a whole other side of the Great Reset narrative we'll definitely get to soon.
Fascinating how quickly it gained political oxygen. But let's rewind a bit and dive into the thinking behind it. Klaus Schwab and Thierry Malloret, in their book COVID-19, The Great Reset, argue the pandemic was much more than just a health crisis. They saw it as a defining moment that didn't just create new problems, but brutally exposed and crucially accelerated existing global fault lines.
Like what kind of fault lines?
Things like social divides, a deep lack of fairness, and profound failures in global governance. It amplified trends already in motion, from a partial retreat from globalization and the U.S.-China decoupling to increased automation and growing concerns about surveillance.
Okay, so it wasn't new stuff, necessarily, but existing stuff getting faster and worse.
Exactly.
This really highlights a crucial insight.
Yeah.
Our world is so deeply interdependent. Risks, whether economic, geopolitical, societal, environmental, or technological, don't exist in isolation. They amplify each other through complex interactions. The WEF's own Global Risks Report 2020 visually showed how an infectious disease could directly trigger global governance failure and social instability.
Right, like dominoes falling.
Pretty much. This interconnectedness means silo thinking, trying to fix problems in isolation. It just doesn't work anymore. We saw this in the 2008 financial crisis, right? Where trying to solve only the housing crisis missed the deeper systemic connections, leading to a broader collapse. The pandemic didn't just expose cracks, it it fundamentally proved that a problem anywhere is potentially a problem everywhere, making siloed solutions obsolete and demanding genuinely holistic thinking.
And the sheer speed at which the pandemic unfolded made it incredibly difficult to grasp. Our brains just aren't wired for exponential growth.
Hard to picture.
It's like that famous line from Ernest Hemingway. Gradually, then suddenly. Yeah. Systemic shifts often unfold this way, building slowly, then hitting you all at once. Add to that the complexity, the sheer amount of conflicting information, the interconnectedness of everything, and especially nonlinearity.
Nonlinearity.
Yeah, that's where a small change can have a disproportionate surprising effect, like the classic butterfly effect idea.
Gotcha.
This explains why pandemic models had such wide ranges and why leaders, despite having more information than ever, had less time to act. In a way, this wasn't a black swan event, a completely unpredictable outlier. It was more like a white swan.
A white swan. Meaning?
Something predicted by countless organizations and individuals from the WHO to Bill Gates for years. The potential was known, even if the timing wasn't.
Right. The economic and employment impacts were truly staggering, weren't they?
Oh, absolutely.
The global economy slammed to an abrupt and brutal stop, collapsing faster and more severely than even the Great Depression or the 2008 financial crisis. Millions upon millions lost their jobs. It was a monumental shock. This ignited a widespread debate about a false trade-off between saving lives versus saving the economy.
I remember that being everywhere.
But many argue that economic recovery simply cannot happen until the virus is defeated, because fear itself paralyzes economic activity. The data later showed that forceful interventions, like lockdowns, actually averted millions of deaths across Europe alone. It shifted the paradigm for how we think about the economy entirely.
Exactly. This crisis forced a radical rethinking of how we even measure economic success. Why should GDP be the sole metric?
Yeah, the focus on GDP has been questioned for a while.
Right. The proposal is for a new compass that includes broader concepts like well-being, the distribution of economic gains, and overall resilience encompassing financial, physical, natural, and social capital.
So looking beyond just the dollars and cents.
Precisely. We've seen real-world examples of this, like New Zealand's well-being budget, which prioritizes spending on mental health and child poverty, or Amsterdam's donut model for public policy, aiming to meet human needs within planetary boundaries. These are concrete shifts from a purely growth-at-all-costs mindset.
The pandemic also triggered a fundamental shift in fiscal and monetary policy. The traditional, almost sacred barrier between central banks and elected governments, well, it blurred.
How so?
This could make central banks more subservient to political will, opening the door for financing massive public projects. Concepts like modern monetary theory, or MMT.
Right, MMT.
The idea that governments that issue their own currency aren't constrained by revenue in the same way households are in helicopter money, where money is directly distributed to citizens, gained serious traction.
People were actually talking about those seriously.
Absolutely. While some worried about runaway inflation, others pointed to the Japanification scenario.
Which is?
A decades-long period of low growth, low inflation, and ultra-low interest rates that has coexisted with high living standards. It suggests that economic models can adapt in surprising ways, It's not always straightforward.
And on the global stage, this even challenged the future of the U.S. dollar. For decades, the U.S. has enjoyed what's called the exorbitant privilege of having its dollar as the world's primary reserve currency.
The global standard.
But doubts are definitely growing. Critics point to the rapid deterioration of the U.S. fiscal position and the controversial weaponization of the dollar for geopolitical purposes, which, naturally incentivizes other countries to seek alternatives.
Like who? What alternatives are there?
Well, there aren't many obvious short-term contenders like the Chinese renminbi or the euro, not yet anyway. But China's aggressive tests of a national digital currency signal a clear move towards greater digitization and independence from U.S. financial intermediaries.
So a digital yuan could potentially bypass the dollar system.
That seems to be part of the long-term thinking. This isn't just about economics, it's about shifting global power dynamics.
Right. And beyond economics, we saw profound societal transformations. COVID-19 was definitely not a great leveler, despite what some people said early on.
No, quite the opposite.
If anything, it was a great unequalizer, sharply exacerbating existing disparities in income, wealth, and opportunity. The disproportionate impact on marginalized communities was glaring.
Yeah, the stats were stark.
It also exposed a stark, profound disconnect. Essential jobs, nurses, cleaners, delivery drivers often came with the lowest economic recompense.
The people we suddenly realized we couldn't live without.
Exactly. This inherent injustice, combined with underlying social unrest already brewing before the pandemic, proved to be a volatile mix.
Absolutely. The Black Lives Matter protests that followed George Floyd's killing were a vivid example of this. While his death was the tragic spark, the underlying conditions created or amplified by the pandemic, like racial inequalities and rising unemployment, what sociologists call biographical availability, were the fuel.
What's biographical availability?
It's basically the idea that things like unemployment free up people's time and reduce the personal cost of participating in protests or social movements. It really showed how deep-seated societal issues could be brought to a boiling point by the crisis.
That makes sense. The pandemic also dramatically expanded the state's role, didn't it?
Hugely.
Perceptions shifted almost overnight, leading to increased calls for government intervention in public goods, more regulation, and greater public scrutiny of private companies.
All right.
There was even talk of nationalization or the state taking equity stakes in businesses. The push to strengthen social safety nets like extended unemployment benefits and sick leave became more urgent.
And you saw that contrast starkly between, say, the U.S. system and more comprehensive European and Asian approaches.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is all part of a larger ongoing discussion about redefining the social contract as the pandemic really crystallized the issue of widespread loss of trust in institutions, making a return to the pre-pandemic status quo seem, well, impossible for many.
And let's not forget the surging force of youth activism. All around the globe, young people are increasingly vocal and active, revolutionized by social media.
Yeah, you see it everywhere.
Demanding radical change and a radical alternative to the present course. Issues like climate change and social inequalities are right at the forefront of their demands. They are clearly a significant catalyst for change within this Great Reset narrative.
From a geopolitical perspective, the pandemic laid bare the chaotic end of multilateralism and a glaring vacuum of global governance. Nationalism surged, making collective global action incredibly difficult.
Yeah, my country first seemed to pop up everywhere.
Right. We're seeing a clear drive towards deglobalization, particularly the shortening and relocalization of global supply chains for resilience. People want things made closer to home now.
Makes sense after the disruptions.
Regionalization, where trade blocs like the EU or North America become more self-sufficient, is a likely outcome. This also significantly intensified the U.S.-China rivalry, with some arguing for an irreversible decoupling.
The big power struggle.
Exactly. Interestingly, the crisis also showcased the success of small states, like Singapore and South Korea, in containing the pandemic, suggesting that size isn't everything when it comes to effective governance and rapid response.
The environmental connections here are also incredibly critical. Zoonotic diseases like COVID-19, which jump from animals to humans, have drastically increased because of human destruction of biodiversity. Things like deforestation, unsustainable agriculture, and wildlife trade.
So we're basically creating the conditions for these things to happen.
That's the argument. When we encroach on natural habitats, we break down those natural barriers, creating conditions for viruses to spill over. And then there's air pollution, a silent killer on its own, which studies have directly linked to worsening the impact of the coronavirus, leading to increased mortality. The silver lining, if you can call it that, is that lockdowns did change consumption patterns toward greener living, at least temporarily, and climate activists are certainly emboldened, leading to new tools and strategies for both social and investor activism.
And the tech side, that accelerated massively too,
It was
right?
unbelievably.
The pandemic truly became a catalyst for digital transformation, rapidly accelerating the adoption of remote everything, online work, education, shopping, medicine, and entertainment.
Zoom became a verb overnight.
Exactly. Companies like Amazon, Netflix, and Zoom truly emerged as winners in this landscape. Regulators, who were previously quite cautious, accelerated the adoption of new technologies out of sheer necessity, approving things like telemedicine and drone delivery at unprecedented speeds.
Yeah, red tape just vanished in some areas.
This shift also fueled automation in the workplace to minimize human contact, especially in industries like restaurants and retail, leading to what some call economic distancing.
However, this tech acceleration comes with significant concerns about privacy and surveillance. That's a big part of the anxiety around this.
Definitely.
Successful digital contact tracing became a key strategy in many places, but some Asian nations implemented incredibly coercive and intrusive measures, including tracking without consent, pervasive video surveillance, and electronic bracelets.
That sounds pretty dystopian.
It raises fears of an era of active health surveillance and even a techno-totalitarian state. Thinkers like Yuval Noah Harari argue we face a fundamental choice between totalitarian surveillance and citizen empowerment.
Right.
And Evgeny Morozov's concept of technological solutionism warns that our reliance on quick tech fixes for existential problems could inadvertently entrench surveillance as the default, potentially avoiding the deeper root causes of societal issues.
Okay, so that's the WEF's vision and the context. Now, let's pivot to the controversies and conspiracy theories that have swirled around the Great Reset.
Right, because this is where it gets really contentious.
Not everyone views the WEF's initiative benignly. And this is where the conversation really gets heated for many. The Transnational Institute, for example, suggests the WEF is attempting a silent global coup d'etat.
A coup? That's strong language.
Yeah, essentially arguing it replaces democratic models with a self-selected group of stakeholders making decisions for the populace, thereby diminishing genuine democratic mandates.
And then you have someone like Naomi Klein, who, in her conspiracy smoothie argument, contends that the Great Reset is essentially just a coronavirus-themed rebranding of existing WEF activities.
So nothing fundamentally new, just slick marketing.
That's her take. She sees it as an attempt by the wealthy and powerful to appear benevolent, rather than something fundamentally new. She points out that the WEF has given each Davos meeting a theme for years, and this is simply the latest iteration.
The WE has, of course, pushed back vigorously against these claims. Adrian Monk, their managing director, has called claims of a totalitarian world government or replacing capitalism ludicrous. Klaus Schwab himself has stated quite clearly that the reset is not a revolution or a shift to some new ideology, but rather a pragmatic step toward a more resilient, cohesive, and sustainable world. They say it's an open discussion, not a secret plot.
Despite these rebuttals, core conspiracy claims have spread far and wide, often merging into a kind of sprawling narrative.
Right, the really out there stuff.
These theories frequently assert that the COVID-19 pandemic was orchestrated by a secret group to seize global economic control, that lockdowns were deliberately designed to cause economic meltdown, or that a global elite seeks to abolish private property and enslave humanity with vaccines.
Wow.
A key reference point for many of these theories is Event 201, a simulated pandemic exercise conducted by the WEF and others in 2019, which some interpret as evidence of foreknowledge or even complicity.
And these theories gained immense traction, amplified by internet personalities and conservative commentators like Candace Owens, Glenn Beck, and prominent Fox News hosts such as Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson. They're often linked to broader New World Order theories, tapping into long-standing anxieties. In Canada, politicians like Pierre Poilievre and Erin O'Toole have been accused of giving oxygen to these theories by criticizing government rhetoric that used the term reset, implying some hidden agenda.
Right. Using the language itself becomes controversial.
Exactly. And when Klaus Schwab himself reportedly bragged about Canadian politicians' connections to the WEF, particularly through their Young Global Leaders program, it inevitably fed into these theories of cabals for many people.
What's truly insightful is how researchers have distinguished between two main narratives that appear on platforms like YouTube when people discuss the Great Reset. It's not all the same thing.
Okay.
The majority of negative comments often express a populist discourse, a clear people versus elites narrative. These are fueled by legitimate reports of billionaires increasing their wealth during the pandemic, while so many others lost income.
So, based on real anger about inequality.
Precisely. There's real anger at elites for creating social problems, a perceived lack of democratic mandate, and fears of economic enslavement or neo-feudalism. These comments often call for elites to share their wealth for more fairness. It's rooted in economic anxiety.
Okay, that makes sense. And the other narrative?
In stark contrast, a smaller but vocal minority of comments explicitly present conspiratorial beliefs. These often lack coherence, patching together disparate ideas about climate change or the pandemic being fake, dangers of 5G, or even a sinister plan to depopulate the planet. These comments assign evil intentions, secrecy, a satanic agenda, or a demonic system of world domination to the WE, suggesting the virus was invented or planned long before.
So much darker, more elaborate hidden plot kind of thing.
Exactly. While distinct, both populist and conspiratorial comments highlight deep-seated anxiety anxieties about power, control, and fairness in a world grappling with immense rapid change.
It really is fascinating how the term Great Reset has become this vessel for so many wildly different ideas, from a carefully designed economic recovery plan to a lightning rod for deep-seated fears and mistrust. We've seen how the WF's initiative aims for sustainability and addresses systemic issues while also prompting legitimate critical commentary about its governance model and potential for top-down control.
Right, the questions about who decides.
Exactly. And then there's the lure of conspiracy theories, which, while often debunked by official sources, resonate deeply for some, highlighting profound underlying concerns about inequality, control, and accountability. This raises an important question for all of us, doesn't it? In an increasingly complex and interconnected world where information spreads at light speed, how do we discern between official proposals, legitimate critique, and narratives driven by fear and suspicion?
That's the challenge.
It's a challenge to remain well-informed when the lines between reality and speculation can seem so blurred. Something for you to mull over as you navigate your own sources in the coming weeks.